You've been retaining for weeks. You haven't released once. You're proud of your discipline and waiting for the benefits everyone talks about. But they're not showing up the way you expected, and you can't figure out why you still feel drained and unfocused despite the physical retention. Here's what nobody's telling you: you're bleeding energy through your mind every single day. Those sexual thoughts you're entertaining aren't harmless fantasies. They're actively weakening you in ways almost identical to physical release. Every time you let your mind run sexual scenarios, fantasize about encounters, replay pornographic imagery, you're triggering neurochemical cascades that drain your energy and fragment your focus, even though nothing physical happened. Your body doesn't know the difference between imagined sex and real sex at the biochemical level, which means mental indulgence creates similar depletion without you realizing you're leaking. And most men stay trapped in this loop. Let's learn how to break it. The mental energy drain. Your brain releases the same dopamine, the same neurochemicals, the same hormonal cascade when you fantasize about sex as it does when you're actually having it. The moment you start running sexual scenarios in your mind, your brain triggers arousal responses. Heart rate increases, blood flow redirects to sexual organs, neurotransmitters flood your system preparing you for the encounter you're imagining. Your body is gearing up for sex based on what your mind is feeding it, and this preparation costs energy regardless of whether physical release happens. You're spending metabolic resources, burning through dopamine reserves, activating arousal systems that'll leave you depleted when the imagined scenario doesn't culminate in actual release. It's like revving your car's engine for hours without driving. You're burning fuel and creating wear without getting anywhere. The energy your brain and body waste preparing for sex that never happens adds up to significant depletion over hours and days of mental indulgence. Each fantasy session might only last a few minutes. But if you're having 10 or 20 of these mental episodes throughout the day, you're spending hours in aroused states that drain your system. Your body is mobilizing resources, your brain is burning through neurotransmitters, your nervous system is activating and then standing down repeatedly. This constant cycling between arousal and withdrawal exhausts your system more than you realize. You wonder why you're tired despite retaining. It's because you've been mentally masturbating all day, triggering the same energetic costs without even touching yourself. The drain is invisible but very real. Hours spent in sexual thinking can deplete you nearly as much as actual physical release because you're running the same internal processes, minus only the final expulsion. Your dopamine system is being hijacked. Your focus is being fragmented. Your energy is being diverted into arousal systems. The only thing you're not doing is physically climaxing, but you're experiencing 80% of the depletion for 0% of the satisfaction. This is why men who retain physically but indulge mentally report weak results. They're getting the costs without the benefits because they haven't actually conserved anything. But the energy drain is only the first way sexual thoughts destroy your retention practice. The fragmented focus. Sexual thoughts fragment your focus and demolish your ability to concentrate on anything meaningful, because each mental intrusion pulls your attention away from what you're trying to do. You're working on an important project and a sexual thought appears. You entertain it for 30 seconds before catching yourself and returning to work. 5 minutes later, another one. You indulge it briefly and come back. This cycle repeats dozens of times throughout the day, and each interruption costs you far more than the seconds you spend on the thought. Your brain needs time to regain deep focus after being pulled away, and if you're being interrupted every few minutes by sexual content, you never achieve the depth of concentration where real work happens. You're operating in a constant state of fragmented attention that makes everything harder and less effective. The cognitive cost of these constant interruptions is massive when you add up the switching costs over hours and days. Studies show it takes an average of 23 minutes to regain deep focus after a distraction. If sexual thoughts are pulling you away every 5-10 minutes, you're literally never reaching the focused state where your best thinking happens. You're spending entire days in shallow attention that can't handle complex problems or produce creative insights. The work you complete is lower quality, takes longer, and leaves you frustrated because you can sense you're operating below your capability. This isn't a focus problem. It's a sexual thought problem. Your mind is being hijacked repeatedly throughout the day by content that makes sustained concentration impossible. Men who retain physically, but let their minds run sexual content constantly never access the full cognitive benefits of retention, because their attention is too fragmented to focus properly. They're conserving sexual energy, but bleeding it through mental indulgence that prevents the focus and clarity that should emerge. The enhanced concentration that retention provides only shows up when your mind isn't constantly pulled into fantasy. If you're entertaining sexual thoughts all day, you're destroying the very benefit you're trying to build. Your retained energy could be powering deep focus and elevated thinking, but instead it's being diverted into arousal systems that scatter your attention and weaken your cognitive function. And if you think the damage stops at energy and focus, wait until you understand what's happening to your energetic field. Half effort, half results. Dwelling on sexual thoughts creates energetic discharge, even without physical release, because your focused attention is directing sexual energy outward instead of conserving it internally. Energy follows attention. When you're mentally replaying sexual scenarios or fantasizing about encounters, you're directing your sexual energy toward those images and thought forms, which creates a subtle outward flow. It's not as dramatic as physical release, but it's a slow leak that drains your field over time. You're essentially edging energetically, building arousal, directing energy toward sexual expression, then pulling back before completion. This leaves your energy scattered and partially discharged instead of concentrated and contained. Your aura weakens noticeably when you're constantly running sexual scenarios mentally, because your field is being pulled outward toward the content your mind is creating. A strong aura comes from contained, focused energy. When you're mentally indulging sexual content all day, your energy isn't contained. It's being broadcast outward toward imagined scenarios, dispersing your field instead of strengthening it. People can sense this even if they don't consciously know what they're detecting. You'll have less presence, less magnetism, less impact after days of mental indulgence compared to days of mental discipline. The thoughts are literally weakening your energetic body by directing energy outward instead of keeping it concentrated within you. True retention requires mental discipline, not just physical abstinence, because the practice is about conserving life force at every level. Physical, mental, you can energetic. You can go months without physical release, but if your mind is constantly dwelling on sexual content, you're not really retaining. You're half practicing, getting partial results, wondering why everyone else reports benefits you're not experiencing.